on the chart quick, and then we'll go through the questions. So grass should be an autotroph because it is a plant that can make its own food, and it obtains energy from the sun directly through the process of photosynthesis, right? Then deer, wolves, and humans are all heterotrophs because they are all organisms that have to eat other organisms to obtain energy. Which also means they get the energy indirectly because they have to eat something else, and then because that organism that they ate had energy from the sun, they get their energy from that organism. Okay? So, first question, or well, second question. Define photosynthesis. What do you guys have? Would you explain, summarize? Go ahead, Allie.
When a cell captures energy from sunlight to make its own food.
Right? Yep. When a cell captures energy from sunlight to do what?
To make its own food.
Make its own food. Yep. Make its own food. Right? What organelle does photosynthesis occur in? You could have looked at your notes. You could look back at that worksheet that we did. Ansley. Not this one. Photosynthesis. Gage?
Chloroplast?
The chloroplast. Cellular respiration is mitochondria. Good job, we switched. Right? What pigment then makes chloroplast green? Chlorophyll. What are stomata? What do they do? Allie?
They're small openings on the bottom of the leaf that let oxygen.
Yep. Small openings in the bottom or on the bottom of leaves that let carbon dioxide in. This then allows the process of photosynthesis to start. What are the two stages of photosynthesis? Real easy summary. Two stages. Go ahead, Allie.
Capturing energy from the sun and using it.
Yep. Capturing energy from the sun, using the energy to make food. And that food is the sugars. Okay? What are the raw materials that are needed for photosynthesis? So these are the things that go in to start the process of photosynthesis. Nayli? Water and carbon dioxide. Then, how does a plant get water for photosynthesis? About how plants grow. Ansley?
It absorbs water from its roots.
It absorbs water through its roots. Oh. How does a plant get the carbon dioxide then it needs for photosynthesis? We already answered this question kind of above in one of our definitions. Allie? Right. Yep. From it entering through the stomata. Right? What are the products then of photosynthesis? Gage?
Sugar or glucose and oxygen.
Yep, sugar, which specifically is that glucose and oxygen. So, true or false? Plants use the sugar glucose as a form of food. Allie?
True.
That is true. They also use the glucose. It can be broken down into other types of sugars, which have other functions, or it can be like converted and combined with other materials as well. Okay, so that is section 3.3. Moving on to section 3.4. Define cellular respiration. What we got? Go ahead, Gage.
The process by which cells obtain energy from glucose.
The process by which cells obtain energy from glucose, which is that sugar. Yes. Yeah, so they break down those sugars, and then they obtain that energy. All right, plants or those cells store energy in the form of what? They are sugars, but there's like a more general term. Neely? Carbohydrates, okay? If you remember back when we did like other notes and sections, carbohydrates include those sugars and starches, so that's how it's stored. Okay? All right, 2 stages of cellular respiration. What do we got? They're kind of the same thing. Allie?
Storing and releasing energy and then
Okay, storing. Actually, we're gonna reset that. So the first one is gonna actually be breaking down the molecules and then releasing a little bit of energy. Then the second stage is that the molecules combine with oxygen and release more energy. Right? If you guys need to fix that, please do. Right? Then question 15, where does the first stage of cellular respiration occur? Each?
cytoplasm.
The cytoplasm. And true or false, oxygen is not involved in the first stage. Allie? True. And then true or false, a little bit of energy is released in the first stage. Gage?
True.
True. Okay, question 18. Where does the second stage of cellular respiration occur? Neely? In the mitochondria. And then, true or false, oxygen is not involved in the second stage. Allie?
False.
False, yep. Because it is involved. This is where it combines with other materials. And then, true or false, a lot of energy is released in the second stage. Go ahead. True. That is also why the mitochondria are considered the powerhouse of the cell, because they have this great amount of energy and they release it. Okay? The raw materials that are needed for cellular respiration. So what goes in to start the process? Gage?
Sugar and oxygen.
Sugar and oxygen. Remember that sugar is glucose. And then what is produced from cellular respiration? This is also what photosynthesis needs. So,
Carbon dioxide, water.
yep, carbon dioxide and water. So, true or false? Photosynthesis and thought of as opposite processes. Ansley?
True.
It is true. They literally are just flipped. The one produces what the other one needs, and they kind of just go in a cycle. All right, define fermentation. What is this? Allie?
It's the energy releasing process that is not working.
Yep. The energy releasing, not rich. The energy releasing process that don't know how to spell, does not require oxygen. So then, our two types of fermentation. What we got? Neely? And what was the other one? Alcoholic and Gage?
Lactic acid.
Lactic acid fermentation, yep. Alcoholic fermentation, how does it occur, or like what happens in that process? Gage?
When yeast and some other single-celled organisms break down sugar.
Yep. When yeast and other single-celled organisms break down sugars. Okay, so then what are the products or the things that come out of alcoholic fermentation? Should be able to name at least one because of the name. Ansley?
Alcohol, carbon dioxide, is the
Yep, alcohol, carbon dioxide, and small amounts of energy. Right? Then, where does lactic acid fermentation occur? H?
That time in your body.
In your body. And what is the product? Again, think of the name. Allie? Lactic acid. Right? Then you guys had an essay question to explain how photosynthesis and cellular respiration work together in a continual process. You also need to include how this works in real life with plants and living organisms. This will most likely be on your test, so please prepare. But you should explain, if you look at today's warm-up, that explains it. How photosynthesis produces what cellular respiration needs to continue that cycle, and then including how it works in real life. We know that plants go through the process of photosynthesis to produce the oxygen that we then need to breathe. And when we breathe that oxygen in, our body and our cells are able to function, and through cellular respiration in our cells, when we exhale, we are breathing out carbon dioxide, which goes back into the air, which plants then can absorb and use for photosynthesis. And it is a continual cycle. That is also how we kind of keep a balance of those gases and materials and that oxygen that we need. And that's why it's also important that we don't cut down all the trees and remove plants, because then it reduces the amount of oxygen that we have to breathe, and it upsets that balance. Okay? If you haven't already, please make sure your reviews are turned in, and then we are good to go.